Let's do this.
Alrighty.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 30 of Backup Blueshirts. I'm your host, Mike Sparacino, and Brendan's not here today.
So,
So I
yeah,
got the
Brendan.
next best thing.
Yeah, and I'm filling in. This is Liam Gotimer filling in for Brendan. It's such a big void to fill. But you know what? I'm going to try my best, and we hope Brendan's able to listen and able to get some pointers from the Chell Master.
Oh, Brendan, better listener. I'll kick his ass. No, I'm just kidding.
You and me both.
All right. So, obviously, number 30. You know,
No, this is an easy one.
I know. Mike Dunham.
You know what? You read my mind with that one. You absolutely read my mind. Best Rangers player to wear number 30 in their history. No, Mike, tell them who it is.
Number 30, the King, Henrik Lundqvist.
And you know what? I don't think we could have any more fitting number and person to dedicate this episode to, because Henrik Lundqvist is making the news as the buyout window comes closer and closer. And what are your thoughts on it, Shades? Because I can't wrap my head around it. The only option that really comes to my head is that he's going to get bought out, and that the Mets are going. Oh my gosh, the Mets! It goes how much I'm showing me that I'm talking about baseball so much. It goes to show me that the Rangers are going to try to free up the cap space, for next season, and they would only have $1.5 million in dead money the following season after next year if they would buy him out. So it would give them some cap relief. They have a lot of RFAs to re-sign. Ryan Strome, Tony DeAngelo being among the two most important. But tell me what you think. Is Lundqvist going to get bought out by the Rangers, or is something different going to happen here?
Two thoughts. One, I realized, thanks for calling me Shades, because I realized I forgot to say AKA Shades in the intro. So thank you very much.
I said Mike, and then I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna call him Shades. I feel like that would be better.
It felt better.
Yeah, right.
And thought number two on Hank. I don't know. It's a little weird because this all happened because of a supposed leak of a Libor Hayek interview. So,
I heard that. You're right.
and I also heard that it may have not been translated 100% right. So I don't know exactly what to believe.
Yeah, I
But
feel yeah.
at the same time, I mean, we've been talking about this for months. It was definitely an option on the table the entire time. Is it sad if it's true? Yeah, obviously. But I don't know. Something tells me like something strange is going to happen. Like we trade him at half, and then another team trades him at half, and then he gets bought out, and then everybody suffers just because that's so 2020.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just everything is up in the air, and it's really impossible to predict. I believe the buyout window opens up on the 25th of September. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we will find out then. And I agree with you. I think that John Davidson and Jeff Gordon, they have something up their sleeve with Lundqvist. Clearly, I believe Davidson and Lundqvist specifically had a chat after they both got back to New York after getting eliminated from the bubble in the play-in round. So they had a plan in place. Personally, I think he gets bought out. I think they get the cap relief for this offseason, and subsequently the next offseason, $1.5 million, in dead cap isn't really too bad for me, but certainly something that you said could happen. But personally, if you're asking me, I cannot envision a scenario where Henrik Lundqvist is not bought out, and trust me, it's very sad for me when I say that. Don't get me wrong. So
Oh, you and me both.
so I mean, he's such a legend in the organization, and it's a shame that the fans have lost confidence in him, and to a certain extent, the organization as well. In the last couple of seasons, certainly his play has diminished a bit, but I don't think to the point where he deserved to be scrutinized as much as he has. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on that, but just everybody was ready to move on with him, and the next big thing, Shesterkin, so quickly, and that may be the right option here, but they had the writing on the wall for Lundqvist, from the very start, just a couple of years back, ever since the Rangers put the rebuild into fruition. So
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Plus, Shesterkin, he earned that number one role, so
for sure,
yeah, no.
and I think the writing on the wall for me was when he started the elimination game in Game 3. against Carolina. Obviously, Lundqvist, got the first 2 starts, but they left the net into Shesterkin's hands. They left the series into Shesterkin's hands, and he didn't play terribly, but he got that playoff experience, albeit one game. So I think that's important. But me and you can agree that it's going to be a very, very sad day if come the 25th, Henrik Lundqvist's contract is bought out. And as far as his future, I could either see him, going back to Sweden to play with his brother Joel in Frölunda, or maybe another team picks him up. But I don't see that as a feasible option. So
Yeah, no, neither do I, unfortunately. So we talk about Lundqvist. Let's talk about the other option that may or may not happen. Do they trade Georgiev?
Well, that is.
We have to bring it up.
Big question. Everybody seems to be split on that, right?
We have to bring it up.
Yeah, we do. You're absolutely right. And I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think a big determining factor is going to be what happens come the buyout window, come the 25th. If Lundqvist does not get bought out, then Georgiev could be on his way out. Because I don't know who would step into that backup role immediately behind Shesterkin if both Lundqvist and Georgiev are not on the team. Maybe Adam Huska, who's been playing some time in Hartford. But I think that's when we'll find out. I mean, and it all comes down to the value. And, me and you, Shades, we've talked about it on a multitude of occasions.
Oh, yeah.
The value for Georgiev is relatively unknown. So I think if the Rangers get a good deal, I think you got to pull the trigger. But if you're given anything less than market value for what a goalie of Georgiev's standard should command, then you keep him. That's what I say.
Yeah, I agree with you. Unless you're getting a second rounder or something valuable like that, you don't trade him.
Right. Yep. I certainly agree. And Georgiev is more valuable on the Rangers as is than any second round pick or third round pick rather. I think would be. So we'll see. I would expect a lofty return. If they would trade Georgiev, but again, only time will tell, and I think Lundqvist's future really, really determines that. So,
same. All I know is Lundqvist is back in New York.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much the only news that has really come out with Lundqvist. And just to expand on that Hayek interview, I believe he said that Lundqvist was saying goodbye to his teammates after the Game 3 loss to Carolina. I'm sure you can put some stock into that, but like you said, you don't know the translation. You don't know the tone that Hayek was using during the interview. It was just words. So, again, the big thing for me, only time will tell. That goes with Georgiev, that goes with Lundqvist, and that goes with a lot surrounding the Rangers organization. So.
Yeah, and I also heard another thing about that interview that Hank may have said this might be my last game, and it wasn't definite. So here's my prediction. If he doesn't get bought out the first day of the buyout window, Georgiev's getting traded.
I agree with that. I think if the Rangers are going to buy out Henrik Lundqvist is going to be on that first day. I don't see them wasting any time. And Georgiev could be moved at the draft. That could be the time. Come October 9th, I believe it is. So again, only time will tell. And I think the buyout window, that's a huge determining factor, the biggest determining factor of Lundqvist's future. But if this is the end for Henrik Lundqvist, I personally say thank you so much for giving me so much exceptional goaltending in hockey, over the last 15 years I've been watching. So, just thank you to the king.
I started watching in 2011, so thank you for 9 very, very good seasons.
Yeah, and the playoffs, he has just been what a playoff performer. No better goaltender in Game 7s that I've ever seen than Henrik Lundqvist. And like I said, the one thing that really irks me about Lundqvist's time in New York is that the fans and the management really pushed him out towards the end there, and I think people will remember that. And as a Ranger fan, a diehard one, I will. So.
Yeah, just real quick, anybody who still blames him for 2014, it's just like we got outplayed badly, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, nothing you can do about it, and we lost almost every single game in that series, if not every single game in the Stanley Cup Final, in overtime to the Los Angeles Kings.
Except for what was it, Game 3?
I think Game 3 back in New York. Yep, and then the Rangers won Game 4 to stay alive. But yeah, I'm not gonna bring this up, but I wasn't gonna bring this up, but I feel like I should. And that one goalie interference call in LA that should have been overturned because there was no video review at that time. It couldn't happen. I believe that was a game-tying goal, so that one still bothers me. I think Dustin Brown with goalie interference, something like that. But don't blame Lundqvist for 2014. He was the main reason why we got there in the first place. He was that good in the playoffs, and there were a bunch of Rangers playoff teams in the following seasons that would really rely on Henrik Lundqvist and his strong play, and he kept us in a majority of those series. So if you want to blame him for any of that, please try to reconsider your knowledge as a hockey fan.
I would just like to. Henrik definitely would have won a cup depending on what team he would have been on.
Oh yeah, for sure. So. And it kind of irks me again a little bit that Lundqvist's Hall of Fame repertoire. If this is the last season for Lundqvist and he doesn't end up playing, for another NHL team, it kind of irks me that it will be in question because due to the fact that he has not won a Stanley Cup. And if I believe he was on a better team than the Rangers at that time, like the Blackhawks, for example, he would have multiple cups under his ledger. So.
I gotta agree with that one.
Definitely.
This is just off the top of my head. If you put him on the 2015 Ducks win the cup.
Yeah. What was that? Freddie Anderson? He had the net in that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And that was not the Freddie Anderson in Toronto that we know so well today. This was a younger Freddie Anderson who was not nearly as experienced. So yes, if you put Lundqvist on many of those teams, I think they pick up a cup win. So it's a shame, but we're gonna miss him.
Yeah, I mean nothing is definite until it's definite, but it'll be a sad day no matter when his last game or day is on the Rangers, regardless. So.
Right, and it's only fitting that his last game as a Ranger, if this is it was a playoff game, and unfortunately it wasn't a win. But
and one last time the team let him down.
Exactly, you wouldn't have it any other way, right?
It's so true. It's so sad, but it's so true.
Absolutely.
All right, well. I mean, I think we covered Hank enough, so let's move on to another future Ranger. I don't know why I said another there, but let's move on to a future Ranger, Vitali Kravtsov.
He has just been lighting it up in the KHL through the first 6 games. 5 goals, no assists, some highlight reel ones as well.
And he lead the KHL in shots too?
I believe he is among the league leaders, if not leading the KHL in shots as well. And that was a problem in the AHL last season. His shot taking and his skating were the 2 things that scouts really picked up on as a weakness for Kravtsov in the American Hockey League with Hartford last year. So the fact that he's starting to improve on that, I think, is very important.
Oh yeah, I just want to bring up that when this whole situation last month about him going back to Russia and everyone was flipping out, I didn't understand it at the time, and I still don't understand it. It's just like, why would you not want him playing games when the NHL literally is not going to be going on?
Yeah, exactly. And you see it around the league with so many other young players. I mean, you see it with the Rangers. You see Libor Hayek just got loaned overseas as well, to get in some much-needed playing time. So Igor Rykov, I think, is going back to the KHL as well. So
yep.
It can only do good things for Kravtsov. And, after putting up 6 goals and 9 assists in the entire AHL season last year, you got to like what you see early on, for sure.
Oh, yeah, especially in a better league.
Yeah, in a better league, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a little concerned last year when the Tractor KHL team that he's on had sent him down to the, I guess you could say, American Hockey League affiliate. That same type of deal. Got demoted to the VHL.
Yep.
He performed adequately there, but to see him back in the top league and to see him leading the league in shots, we're seeing a more mature player, and more importantly, we're seeing a player that can either A, light up the AHL next season, which I'm hoping for, or B, crack the starting lineup at a training camp. Obviously the latter is a little unlikely, but you never know, when players are able to turn it on in midst of their development. So.
Yeah, plus he could finish the entire KHL season out and still be back well before the end of next season. That's another option.
Right, yeah, you could do that as well. And, obviously it comes to a comfortability factor as well. You take away the skating deficiencies and the shot deficiencies that he had in the AHL last year. I just don't think he was comfortable in North America, to be quite honest. I think that the coaching was a little hard on him. Now he's back with Tractor, who's a much better team than he was last year, and they have the coach that he had about a couple of years ago when he was performing so well in his draft year. Tractor just brought back that same coach that they haven't had in 2017, 2018, for whom Kravtsov really thrived under. So I think that's important, and I really think it's a toss-up. I think leaving him in the KHL is great. I think bringing him up into the NHL or the AHL is also good to give him some time on North American ice. But the big picture here is that Kravtsov is a much, much better player than he was in the AHL last year. So that's the big takeaway.
Oh, absolutely. And plus, he probably spent the entire pandemic getting in better shape.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't get to see a ton of clips from Kravtsov, last year in the AHL, but from the clips I've seen, his highlight reel goals in the KHL just recently, he looks stronger, faster, bigger, and a player who looks like he can thrive in the NHL or the AHL next year. And you've seen Russian players take a little while to develop and come over to the NHL and just absolutely light it up. So I wouldn't take it away from Kravtsov not being one of those guys.
Yeah, plus Panarin, he came over into the NHL at what, 25?
Yeah, 25, 26 years old, yep.
Now I'm not calling Kravtsov Panarin, but I mean,
hey, you never know. Panarin went undrafted.
Yeah, seriously.
You can believe that. And Nikita Gusev is another good example. He hasn't lit up the NHL, but he's looking like a solid top six forward for the Devils. You look at Evgeny Kuznetsov. He spent some time in the KHL as well. So there are a lot of guys that have really turned up their games, after spending some time in that league. And I truly think Kravtsov's going to be one of them. And you got to credit the Rangers for doing the right thing and letting him develop the rest of the season there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's good management decisions, if you ask me. And that's how you handle a young player during a pandemic.
Oh yeah, and just one more thing, like Hartford kind of did turn into a dumpster fire in the middle of last season. So
yeah, to the point where was Kravtsov playing on the first line, or actually, I think he was more of a third, fourth line player. Actually, at the time, I take that back. But still, yeah, complete dumpster fire. Once Shesterkin left and came up to the NHL, it was just a befuddling of of events. So.
Yeah, seriously. But we'll have him to look forward to this coming season, along with a couple other prospects, specifically Keandre Miller.
Oh, Keandre Miller! I can't wait to out of Wisconsin. I believe he's big, strong, tall defender. He's going to come in and make an impact on the defensive core. I think he's going to be huge. And whether he can crack the opening night lineup, I don't think so. But he can be a top six option going into the following years, and I think that's important. And you have him, you have Niels Lundqvist, who I believe is also spending time overseas.
Yep.
I think he led the SHL, Swedish Hockey League, in points as a defenseman last year, so he's going to be something special.
Oh, absolutely. I highly believe that.
Yeah, me as well. And I believe that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Shades, but I believe he was the pick that we got in that Tampa trade.
Correct.
Right? The 30th overall pick. So, at least some
28th
is working out. 28th overall. So at least some part of that trade is working out. Obviously, Nemestikov moving on to Ottawa, right? Ottawa or Colorado? No, he moved on to Ottawa first for a fourth-round pick. Howden still trying to find his game, and Lundqvist, who looks like he's going to take over the Lundqvist name for the Rangers in the next 10 years, 15 years or so.
Except with a K and not a Q.
Exactly. That one little snippet. It's going to be interesting how many times Sam Rosen pronounces a goal by Henrik Lundqvist, not Niels Lundqvist.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
That's going to be an epic one when it comes along, that's for sure.
And we're all going to love it.
We are. I'm not even going to fault Sam Rosen one bit. I'm going to be like, you know what? Keep doing that. Keep Hank's name alive for us. So.
Well, and one more thing. Let's not forget who will also join the Rangers next year at Lafreniere.
Oh, Alexis Lafreniere. I mean, nothing...
If they don't trade the pick, which they better not.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on this. It really comes comes down if you get an offer that you can't refuse, and even if you do, you have to do such deep thinking about moving on from Lafreniere. And I've come to the conclusion, that this guy is a generational talent. He's going to come in and absolutely transform the Rangers' top six. And the one knock about him is that he's not a center, but maybe the Rangers will try to transition him into one. You never know. But he looks like a magical, dynamic player that is going to come in and help the Rangers next year. And we're suddenly turning into quite a dynasty. When all these players come into fruition, you got Shesterkin and Georgiev, a 1A, 1B goaltender type situation. We have defensive prospects like Lundqvist and Miller coming in, to combine that with Trouba and Fox and D'Angelo, just to name a few. And then the forwards, as good as they've been, Kreider, Kakko, another season, of Kakko. I think he's really going to turn it up next year. And with Lafreniere, many scouts are predicting a 60-point rookie season. That's absurd. I would certainly be happy with that. So,
I'm setting my expectations low at 45.
Right. We all said that Kakko was going to have – most of us said that Kakko was at least going to have a 40, 50-point season last year, but it was much different and much more difficult for him to, make that transition. I think he looked a lot better once he came back for the play-in round. So I agree with you. It's all about tempering expectations.
Oh, yeah. And all of these are going to be pieces to the puzzle of trying to win the Stanley Cup for when the Rangers eventually do get back into the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, what are your thoughts been on them overall so far?
I just think from a macro perspective, just the bigger picture, I think that the NHL has just done a brilliant job with the bubble. I believe they had their sixth straight week of no positive COVID-19 tests. That's just a job well done by everybody who's been running things. Gary Bettman at the top to the bottom and to the players. And it's certainly been an interesting ride, from the play-in round to the round robins to all the series. And I think it's really gone seamlessly. And I know this is a Rangers podcast, but I cannot mention the playoffs without mentioning just how truly, truly impressed I was with the New York Islanders this postseason. I said it last night, to a big Islander a friend of mine, many other people around the game. And I just said, I truly watched the two best teams in the Eastern Conference play in the Eastern Conference Final. And that's not just because they got there in this postseason. Those are the two most talented teams in the East. And I think the Islanders really proved something, not only to me, but to the entire NHL family and everybody who watches. Their defensive structure is impeccable. They are one of the most resilient groups I have ever seen, in the last couple of seasons. Varlamov was fantastic, especially in that, in the Eastern Conference Final. Barry Trotz showing why he is perhaps the best coach in the NHL. I think things are really looking up for that team. So I hate him. There's no team in professional sports I dislike more than the New York Islanders. But wow, oh wow, was I impressed with what they did. And tell me if you agree with me. So,
to be honest, not really.
All right, that's fine. I mean, hey, differing opinions, they work.
Well, we're not going to get mad at each other for this, so I can actually have a legitimate discussion with you.
Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
Well, first off, I don't think the Islanders are one or a top two most talented team in the East. That's just my opinion. I think Washington and Pitt. Okay, I think Washington is more talented than them, but talent didn't work hard this year. Hard work outworked the talent.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, that's just one crux. The other one, I brought this up to a few people, and I was met with very mixed reactions of, I said the Islanders got favorable matchups. When you look at it, if you look at the qualifying round, Florida was a joke going into this whole thing because of how they were performing throughout the year. Can we agree on that one?
Yeah, we certainly can. Definitely. I think Florida, they were essentially a joke, so I will agree with you there.
All right. And then they went up on Washington, who, after they got eliminated from the bubble, they basically admitted, they did not want to be there. They did not take being there seriously. So if they actually wanted to be there and Well, to be honest, they looked like they didn't care either through that series. So
Well, I mean, that's where I'll stop you just for a second. I mean, I think that the coaching took a big hit in that Capitals Islanders series. I think that was the biggest difference, if you ask me. I think Todd Reirden is not a good NHL coach, or Kevin from The Office, as many people like to like to describe him as. Now he's with Pittsburgh. Thank you, Pittsburgh, for taking him. But yeah, I think
okay,
you
that I
mentioned
agree with you on.
no.
That I agree with you on.
For sure. You mentioned it yourself. You said that Washington was a more talented team than the Islanders. I think it comes down to more than will and determination to be in the bubble. The Islanders manhandled the Capitals. It really wasn't close. There were a couple overtime games there. A couple, of close games, but just style of play, the Islanders just carried it. If you ask me, I mentioned it to you and Brendan in our little group chat that you have, and hey, if you want to come back to this at the end of next year, and I could be totally wrong, but it's just my take. I think that Washington, Pittsburgh are going to take a huge dip in the Metropolitan Division. This division now belongs to Carolina, the Islanders, Columbus, the Rangers, and the Flyers. I think they're going to take a massive, massive dip, even with Peter Laviolette. I don't think it's the same team. I think when Braden Holtby leaves in free agency, and yes, he is leaving in free agency, Samsonov is going to have a little bit, of an adjustment to make. He didn't get a ton of starts last season. Remember, it was mostly Holtby's net. So I think that Islanders are a flat-out better team than Washington, and they proved it by obliterating them in 5 games. So I know we're going to disagree there, but I think the Islanders proved in that series more than anything that they're a better team than the Washington Capitals, and they'll prove it next year. But hey, we could come back next year, and the Capitals could be, at the top of the Metro Division. I could be completely wrong, but that's really where I see things going.
Yeah, you're right. We do disagree on that. I think Laviolette is going to make a huge difference on that team because if you look at it, they have a very good defensive core on paper, and they definitely have a very good crop of forwards up front. Look what Laviolette did with Nashville with a little bit better defensive group, but a weaker offensive group overall.
Well, I would agree with you on the offensive part. I disagree with you on the defensive part.
No, I'm saying when Laviolette was coach of Nashville.
Right, for sure. But I just think originally the talent on the back end that Nashville had was not even close to what Washington has right now. Washington has a lot of plugs, on that defensive core, a lot of whom are going to be free agents at the end of the year. You'll have Brendan Dillon, who was acquired at the trade deadline from the San Jose Sharks. Of course, John Carlson, who might win the Norris. He had a down play-in round, if you really – not a play-in round, down first round of the playoffs, if you ask me. And, just building off of what you said about the Capitals not really wanting to be there, you can't forget that the Capitals were one of the better teams in the round-robin games prior to the first round. So, it's not like they were the worst. It's not like so I think –
Wait, didn't Washington finish 3rd seed?
I think it was 3rd seed, yeah. I don't think that they were the worst. I don't think that they were the best. But I don't really see determination and will being and not wanting to be there as a big factor. I think every team that's there wants to win the Stanley Cup, if you ask me. And I think the Capitals were legit contenders going into this first round. And I don't think they would have just thrown it all away, just because they didn't want to be in the bubble. But that's just my take on it. Like you said, Laviolette could possibly transition this team into something much better. I said it in the open. One of the biggest reasons why Washington got manhandled by the Islanders as much as they did was because of Todd Reirden behind the bench. And we've seen with Barry Trotz and the Islanders what coaching can do. So Laviolette can absolutely turn this around, but you can't forget Laviolette had guys like Roman Josi on that back end, Matthias Ekholm, on that back end. So there are a lot of good defensive defensemen on that Nashville team.
Subban when he was still good.
Yeah, Subban when he wasn't garbage, but there was a lot of plugs and holes on this Washington defense. I don't deny the fact that Laviolette could turn it around. He certainly can, but if you ask me, my opinion, I simply don't see it. I think we're seeing a changing of the guard in the Metro, and I would not be surprised one bit if the Islanders were number one come the end of the year. But we'll see. And they need a big-time goal scorer if they want to get there. So, again, we'll see.
Yeah, seriously.
Definitely. But, I digress. Continue what you were saying about, But I do see your point that they did get favorable matchups. I thought they got a very favorable matchup with Philadelphia, and you talked about just how poor Philadelphia has looked, in the bubble while they were still there. And I have to agree with you. And I think that the Islanders really took advantage. And the fact that series went to 7 games, it probably shouldn't have. So.
Oh, yeah, that series did go 7 games.
It did, and if you look at the Flyers, they won every single game that they won in that series. All 3 were overtime games. So, there were games there where the Islanders outplayed the Flyers, just couldn't finish them off in OT. And, OT can be such a crapshoot sometimes, so it did go 7 games. It didn't really feel like it should have gone 7 games, but the Flyers did push them to that level, and the Flyers didn't really go good at all. Outside of Kevin Hayes, I thought they were pretty lackluster.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, because if you look
and Carter Hart. So.
Yeah, because if you look like Giroux, JVR, Konechny, Voracek, I'm pretty sure all 4 of them combined had 2 goals throughout the entire playoffs.
Yeah, and Voracek and Giroux certainly, in particular, deserve some heat. I mean, I can let Konechny go. JVR hasn't been the same player he was on Toronto, in many, many years, so I can't really blame him there. Konechny's a young player, but Giroux and Voracek, you need your top players to play like your top players if you want to succeed in the playoffs, and that just didn't happen. And one of the reasons why Tampa Bay was able to, come away with that 6-game series victory over the Islanders was because even at 50% health, and yes, I think 50% health, Braden Point was the best player on the ice, and the entire 6 games, even one game where he wasn't even playing. I think that's a big factor, and I think the Flyers really need to look in the mirror. But the good thing for them is that they have a decent coach, decent with quotation marks, and Carter Hart, who is a franchise goaltender, and some good young pieces to work with. So, I don't think it's going to end there for Philly, but they did not look like a cup contender, the cup contender that many people really thought they were going into the bubble. At least I did. So.
Oh, no, I think the break killed them.
Yeah, I agree. Were they not the hottest team in the NHL going into the break?
They were certainly a top 3 or 4, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I remember a couple weeks before the break, they manhandled the Rangers at home in an afternoon game, and I'm like, wow, this team is legit. Could not replicate it. The Islanders just shut them down. That's what they do, And believe it or not, whether the Islanders are a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference, they can skate with anybody. They really can. The only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference I thought they might have had trouble with had they come across them were the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Any other team I thought they could have beat. And that includes Carolina, who swept them last year in the Eastern Conference Final. So, the Eastern Conference semifinal.
Yeah, plus Philly, I mean, they just looked awful against Montreal, and then as soon as Philly beat Montreal, we were just like, yeah, no, Islanders are taking this series.
Yeah,
we literally lost all hope in Philly over the course of 1 round.
Yeah, they just simply didn't look good. And even going to a Game 7 and coming back from I believe it was a 3-1 Islanders lead, I still didn't have any confidence that they were going to be able to pull out the Game 7 win, and Barry Trotz did what Barry Trotz did, and he just shuts teams down. I believe he held the Flyers to 11 shots in Game 7. That's what the system's able to do. So, credit to the Islanders, but Philadelphia didn't help their chances. Not a good performance at all. And when you're about to get knocked out by Montreal, you need to take a look in the mirror. And I'm looking at you, Pittsburgh, getting knocked out by Montreal. That's a team that needs to undergo a rebuild. But,
yeah, seriously.
Okay. But yeah, and let's talk about the Eastern Conference Final a little bit.
Well, I mean, Game 1 we can sum up in 5 seconds. Tampa literally missed the net on 1 shot attempt and murdered the Islanders 8-2.
Yes, Game 1 was just absolute obliteration from Tampa Bay, and I don't think the Islanders were ready, I think, simply put.
No, they weren't.
And, and Barry Trotz, got to credit Barry Trotz. Again, they were unable to win the series, but he made that adjustment for Game 2 to where it was, and the rest of the games for that matter, every single game. So you got to give Trotz credit. There wasn't a big disparity, in the goal scoring or the play, rather, I think in any of the ensuing games. So
the only thing I have is Game 2 was the game that Point and Killorn were both out, right?
That might have been Game 3. I believe Game 2 was when they had the cross check on Nelson, the hard hit on Nelson rather, that suspended Killorn. So I think that might have been Game 3. But
you're probably right.
Game 2 was the one where Kucherov ended it with 7 seconds left, I believe. I'll double check on that.
Actually, no, I think you're right. You're right, because they did hold a 2-0 series lead.
Yes. Game 2 was when Kucherov ended it with 7 seconds left, and that was the same game where Killorn did take the major penalty against Brock Nelson, then subsequently got himself suspended. So
yeah, and then Game 3, which I just mentioned, Point and Killorn were both out. If the Islanders didn't win that game, I would have went absolutely off on that team for a lot of different reasons, but they ended up winning like they should have.
That's right. And then Game 4, the Lightning took it 4-1, so they took the 3-1 series lead. And then Game 5, Islanders won in double overtime. Personally,
Point was out yet again.
Point was out yet again. That's right, and that's the big thing for me. I have an Islander buddy that I do a podcast with all the time. This is what I said. I said Braden Point at 50% was the most important player in this series, and I think if Point was not in for Game 6, I don't know. I don't know if Tampa Bay comes away with the victory. It's hard for me to say. So that's how important Point is, and not only that, but that's how good Point is with Kucherov and Palat on his wings.
Oh yeah, no, that was like the one major thing I had against the Islanders. They literally needed Point being out for 2 games to win 2 games.
That's absolutely right.
While they were already down Steven Stamkos.
Right, and and you are probably going to look at me like I have 2 heads by saying this.
I mean, I look at a lot of people like they have 2 heads, so.
But I truly believe it. And I said it on my last week's podcast, with my buddy who's an Islander fan, and he thought I was absolutely crazy.
Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, go check out the penalty box on iTunes.
Thank you. I appreciate the plug there for sure. But my point is, I think that Tampa Bay might be a better hockey team with Steven Stamkos out of the lineup. And look at me like I have 2 heads.
No, I was running through that idea the other day, so you're not completely off base.
Call me crazy, right, and hey, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Tampa Bay wouldn't be in the Stanley Cup Final if Kucherov was there now, but my biggest point is, Stamkos, but my biggest point is, Braden Point does not get a shot on that first line if Steven Stamkos is not in the lineup. Is still in the lineup.
Correct.
And I think Point getting that ice time and getting to play with those top players, that's why we're seeing the player that we saw in the Eastern Conference Final and that we're going to see in the Stanley Cup, barring him being healthy. So I think more than anything, Stamkos being out has helped Tampa. And if he comes back for the Stanley Cup Final and Tampa loses a couple games with him in the lineup, that's why. So, I've always thought this, and, outside of the power play, Stamkos might be a little bit overrated. You didn't hear me say it. But, I think Tampa Bay might be a better team without him in there for right now. So outside of the power play, like I mentioned, Stamkos is amazing on the power play. But Point having an opportunity on the first line is massive for his confidence. He's becoming a superstar. If not, he already is one. So, that's my point.
This also just goes to show you how well-built of a team Tampa is right now.
Oh, Stevie Y, even though he's not there anymore, he's with Detroit now, and hopefully he can replicate the same thing with the Red Wings. They are just so deep. And, I said it back on the penalty box, just a few months ago at the trade deadline. I thought getting Blake Coleman was massive for this team.
Oh, yeah.
You need your 3rd and 4th line players to be your best players in the playoffs. And you know what? Blake Coleman really has been that. He's been that good for this team. Barclay Goodrow, giving up a first-round pick for Barclay Goodrow made me scratch my head a little bit. But he's been as advertised, too. what is that third line? I believe it's what Kudrow, Coleman, and Cirelli on the same line together, or something like that. That is a good, fast third line. That's what scored the overtime goal and sent Tampa to the Cup Final. So third and fourth line players are so important. So you got to credit GM of Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't have his name off the top of my head.
Oh,
For going
Brisbois.
out and for getting Goudreau and Coleman. I thought those were the two biggest trade deadline acquisitions for sure. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I could honestly, Coleman and Goudreau might have been on their fourth line at one point.
Yeah, absolutely. When Stamkos was back healthy, and when the team as a whole was back healthy, absolutely. And I was just salivating last night, and I'm sure you were too, watching Anthony Cirelli score that game-winning goal. As he's going to be a future New York Ranger. So that's certainly great. As we all know, Tampa Bay Lightning cannot afford to sign Miguel Sergachev and Anthony Cirelli, as they are both RFAs. So if Jeff Gordon wants to be risky and send out an offer sheet, he might just get what he's looking for. And I know that you've said in the past that Anthony Cirelli is not that number 2 center. Right now, he might not be.
Wait, did I say that?
I believe you did. I don't know.
I don't remember. I don't. It's been 6 months.
But yeah, I know. Regardless, I know that there were some people that say that Anthony Cirelli cannot slot into that number 2 center role. But there was a time where a lot of people thought that Braden Point couldn't slide into that number 2 center role. And look where we are right now. So bottom line is, this is a young player, and if Jeff Gordon can get his hands on him, by all means, do it.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, Cirelli would be a perfect number 3 center.
Yeah, number 3, or even if you want to slot him up, a little bit. I know that might be risky. Right now, he is a perfect number 3 center, but you can't forget, this is a young player, still a lot of room to develop. And then if you can end up getting Anthony Cirelli, that asks a question about Ryan Strome. And I think Ryan Strome's future directly comes down to his asking price, if you ask me. And I don't really know how much I'm willing to pay Ryan Strome, as his season, was kind of. Just a little up and down, and you look at the metrics, and he's not really a positive player on the ice, but now I think he is. So,
hey, we still struck gold with that Spooner for Strome trade.
Absolutely.
I almost said Sprome.
Thank you for the Islanders for giving us your former.
Even though we can thank Edmonton.
Yeah, thank Edmonton instead. Yeah, I believe Spooner spent some time in Vancouver for a little bit. I don't even think he's in the NHL at this time.
I don't think he is either.
Yeah, so Stromer, we're happy to have you. And, all we needed to do was play with Artemi Panarin. Who would have thought? So.
Well, Tampa versus Dallas coming out of the Western Conference. What are your thoughts on them?
I think that Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup as the bottom line.
I agree with you.
I think that Dallas is a very good team. Don't get me wrong. The uncertainty of Ben Bishop concerns me a little bit, although I think Anton Khudobin has stepped in and just been flawless the entire playoffs. I think this is a very well-structured team, a very well-coached team, and that's something I really did not expect to say when Jim Montgomery unfortunately went down with his alcohol addiction in the middle of the season. Rick Bowness ended up taking over, and he's just been fantastic. And the big thing for me with Dallas is this. I said it earlier in the podcast. If you want to have success in the playoffs, you need your top players to play like your top players. Sagan might not, be playing up to his potential. But let me tell you, Jamie Benn and Alexander Radulov are having a hell of a playoffs. Kivi Ranta, whoever heard of your Kivi Ranta? I didn't hear about him until he scored that hat-trick overtime game winner against the Colorado Avalanche in Game 7. Pavelski gave them that extra veteran presence that they needed. You look at young guys like Hintz, up there, and, some veterans on the third and fourth line. This team is very well built, but bottom line is there's no stopping the best team left, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning. So,
unless Braden Point gets hurt.
Yeah, unless Braden Point re-aggravates the injury. And, you got to think that if he was out for 2 games in the Islanders series, something's seriously wrong there,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, seriously.
So, it could be a concussion or not. He wouldn't be playing if it was a concussion, but it could be a head injury. I don't think it's his lower half. I think, it definitely is the upper body. So it could be a shoulder injury. We heard that Adam Pelech had a broken wrist during Game 5. He suffered a broken wrist in the first period of Game 5. He played the entire rest of the game. Holy shit. Like, goddamn, like, that is just impressive resiliency right there from Pelech. So we've seen players been able to fight through these injuries. But my pick for the Stanley Cup Final is the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games.
I'm going to go 6 because Khudobin's playing that good.
Yeah.
Hell, they could push it to 7 if he keeps playing the way he's playing.
Yeah, Khudobin's just been fantastic, and he was able to keep a prolific Vegas offense pretty much off the board, for the biggest games in that series.
Yep.
So you have to give Khudobin credit there. He has stepped in for Ben Bishop seamlessly, and it kind of disappoints me a little bit that Ben Bishop won't be able to play against his former team in the Stanley Cup Final. That kind of would have been cool to see, but you never know. So.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Oh, Tampa, definitely my pick to win, just because Dallas is relying way too heavily on Khudobin.
Absolutely.
But I'm still rooting for Dallas because of two reasons. One, I would love to see Joe Pavelski lift the Stanley Cup.
As would I.
And two, I do not, under any circumstance, I will shut the TV off I will shut the TV off before Tampa wins the cup because of Kevin Shattenkirk.
I knew exactly where that was going. You know what? I wouldn't be happy to see Shattenkirk lift the cup, but man, oh man, would I be so happy to see Ryan McDonough lift the Stanley Cup.
I would be semi-happy for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would be happy to see Pavelski, but I would be more happy to see McDonough. But Shattenkirk, yeah, no, he was just, he hasn't even been that good for Tampa. We saw how he single-handedly gave away that game 5 rather, against the New York Islanders by fanning on that shot, which led to the inevitable 2-on-1, which ended the game. So he's even doing Ranger things when he's not on the Rangers. So,
yeah, he's really not playing that well. He's really not.
No, he's not. And he's at this point he's a top 6 defenseman who can provide you some offense on the second power play unit. That's all he is, if you ask me. At this point in his career. Not nearly the guy he was in St. Louis or the guy he was in Washington for that matter. So
honestly, I didn't think he was that great in Washington either.
Yeah, I thought he was better in Washington than he was on the Rangers. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Definitely not as good as he was in St. Louis, and I believe he spent some time in Colorado as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that's where he was drafted, right?
I believe he was drafted in Colorado, yeah, but I don't think he got much playing time besides that. But yeah, he's not the same player. Not even a top 4 D-man, and I don't know what his contract status looks like. I don't know if Tampa picked him up for 1 year or something like that, but I could see them re-signing Bogosian, but not Shattenkirk. So.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before we should probably talk about the Eric Staal for Marcus Johansson trade between the Minnesota Wild and the Buffalo Sabres, and give me your thoughts on that, and then I'll give you my take on where I think both teams are headed as a result of this. So.
All right, first off, my reaction to when I found out, I literally just started laughing because I was just like, that's a completely random trade.
Very much so.
But at the same time, I was like, yes, Buffalo needed a center, but now Minnesota also needs a center because they traded Eric Staal.
Johansson can play there, but he's more of a winger at this point in his career.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's more of like a hockey trade if it's from 2 actual contenders.
Right, yeah, exactly. And, for Minnesota, for me, this tells me they're in full-on rebuild mode, as a result of this trade. Koivu, they just announced Koivu is not going to be re-signed for next year, so this is going to be a very, very different-looking team, led by Kaprizov, who's going to come in and be their top prospect. But as far as my thoughts on the trade, on the Wild side, it was a little questionable. Obviously, they free up a little bit of cap. I don't believe Eric Staal was making too much money, around $3.5 million. They might have even canceled themselves out. I think Johansson's making quite a bit of money as well. But this is a better trade for Buffalo than it is for Minnesota. Buffalo, they might need that veteran presence. Ever since they traded Ryan O'Reilly, they've been a little weak down the middle. And I think Eric Staal can still be a productive player, despite how garbage he was on the Rangers. But I won't get into that.
Yeah, there was a lot of reasons why he was.
Yeah,
That
right.
he was literally in the middle of like one of the worst seasons of his career. We should have never made that trade.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And we needed a center at the time, and he was one of the guys, who was slated to get traded at that year's deadline. But and hey, he had a rejuvenated start in Minnesota. He was pretty good for the Wild last year. You can't take anything away from him there, but definitely on the down end of his career. And Buffalo is just trying to find lightning in a bottle. And if they think that next year is going to be any different than the last couple of years, I think they're sorely mistaken. So.
They need a goalie, first and foremost.
They do need a goalie, absolutely. I believe they're running with who are they running with Hutton, and they got Lekanen in the system as well. So
Yeah.
they need Georgiev.
I mean, if they wanna trade us that, what is it, 8th overall pick or something in a package that we send their way, I mean, I wouldn't be against it depending on what the package is. Just throwing that out there.
I wouldn't be either. And the Rangers kind of have a nice young little center who might work out well in Buffalo. It's packaged for that number 8, Mr. Filipino. But you never know. I know a lot of people don't want to give up on Hedl yet. But yeah, bottom line is Buffalo definitely needs a goaltender if they want to make any run. And I think the defensive core is actually pretty good, if you ask me. I think Scandella is a good goaltender. Oh my gosh, goaltender! Wow, Scandella is a good defenseman. I think Dahlin, is going to have a bounce back year this year. I think Henry Jokiharju was just one of the best trade pickups of any team. In the last year when they made that trade for Alexander Nylander. Jokiharju is that good of a young defenseman. So there's some hope in Buffalo, but we've been saying there's hope in Buffalo for the last 5 years now, and it's just been mediocrity upon mediocrity upon mediocrity. So
upon mediocrity.
That's right. What a way to close that statement. And then the last thing, Alex Pietrangelo, big free agent defenseman. The St. Louis Blues have informed Pietrangelo that it would probably be best for him to test the free agent UFA market. And I don't know if you saw, but a report just came out that the offer from the Blues to Pietrangelo was for an AAV of $7.7 million. And that is well under what he's going to get from market value. If you ask me, I think he gets $9 to $10.5 million.
And that was after they traded Jake Allen.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Well, who would have thought what the offer would have been before?
Jeez.
So possible landing spots. Shades, take me through. Where do you think Pietrangelo could fit in best? Because he does not look like he's returning to St. Louis unless he wants to take a massive pay cut. So
first off, I just heard about this 7.5 AAV offer. So that's alarming.
Yeah, that's.
But then again, that like with the flat cap going forward, it's tough to see where he will go. I mean, Buffalo could use him, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo could use him. Yep, definitely.
I'm just saying Buffalo because we literally just mentioned them.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Let's see. Teams like Carolina doesn't need a defense. I'm just going off the top of my head. Tampa, no, they're not fitting him in that cap. I mean, Ottawa could probably use him.
Ottawa would be an interesting choice.
They don't really have anybody set to be the future 1D.
Besides Shabbat, yeah. But
Well, Shabbat's on the left side, right?
I believe, yeah, Shabbat is on the left side. So
all right, so let's see. Buffalo and Ottawa. Who else?
I mean,
Columbus, no.
Yeah, Columbus, no.
They have Seth Jones.
Yeah, they're just fine, especially defensively. They could use an offensive piece, if anything.
Or 2 or 3.
Well, how about Colorado? What do you think about the Abs? You talk about a team that has a lot of cap space.
Here's my thing about Colorado. If they are going to sign him, it's going to be a 1 or 2 year deal because they're going to have to pay McKinnon in 2 years or something.
Right, and
along with Makar also. So.
Yeah, I agree. But you look at it from a player standpoint and a team standpoint, right? I think that Colorado would be fine with a short-term deal because they really want to win a Stanley Cup. And I think if you add Pietrangelo and a decent goaltender, which they have enough cap space to get both if they wanted to, they could win the Stanley Cup next year. They're a 1D and a top goaltender away. I truly, truly believe that.
Oh, I already have them pegged to win the Cup next year.
Right, I had them in the Stanley Cup Final this year, but Dallas ruined those plans for me.
Well, also Colorado got injured to hell.
They did. They were without Landeskog at a point. They were without a lot of players, so they were injured. But you look at it from a player standpoint too. Pietrangelo might want to rebuild on his value. He might want to win a Stanley Cup himself, and then go test the free agent market. After that, maybe a return to St. Louis. You never know. Maybe he doesn't want to lock down the rest of his years with one team. So I think a short-term deal is interesting, if you ask me. And then another team, and I know you're going to roll your eyes at this one.
Don't say the Islanders.
No, I'm not going to say the Islanders. No.
Okay.
They got their own RFAs to sign.
Yeah, seriously.
You talk about a team that loves to do the big splash and a team that needs a number one defender so badly. The Leafs. And I know they're up against the cap. They got around $5 million in cap space right now after that Kapanen trade. They have a couple other pieces that they could move. You can move Nylander and his $6 million cap hit. We talked about it before the show. Somebody would bite on that. You open up $11 million in cap. You get a couple more $1 million open. You could sign Pietrangelo to a long-term deal, and that would be the most Toronto Maple Leafs thing I've seen, the most 2020 thing I've seen, if he signs in Toronto. But give me your thoughts on that.
Well, if Dubas is somehow able to pull that off, he's got to trade a couple other pieces away. He already traded Kapanen. Janssen is probably going to have to go.
Right.
Almost definitely, if he doesn't move Nylander. If they do sign him, they're going to lose a lot of offensive firepower.
Yeah, they definitely would. But I think that's something that Dubas would be willing to do. I mean, clearly, this core of offensive players is not it. Combined with the defense. So sometimes you got to sacrifice the offense to focus on the defense. And I think that's something I could see Toronto doing. And there really isn't a lot of destinations that really come to the forefront with Pietrangelo, right? It's kind of like it's $10.5 million deal. That's probably what he's going to get. It's the flat cap, and not a lot of teams are really willing to spend that price tag. I think Toronto really could be a viable team, truly.
You want to know one team who I don't know their cap situation off the top of my head, but one team that desperately needs a defenseman on the right side to begin with?
Who's that?
The Winnipeg Jets.
Winnipeg, that would be interesting for sure. The one thing about Winnipeg is I don't know where they are with that cap. I think they might be a little bit of up against it. But
yeah, that's why I said that. I don't know what their cap situation is.
Right, yeah, I'm trying to get that right now.
But
yeah,
they literally last summer alone lost Trouba, Bufflin, and Myers.
Right, yeah, and I think that Bufflin contract, does that come off the table, or I'm not entirely.
I'm not. Oh, wait a second. I'm so stupid. I got a new laptop, so I can actually go on the internet while I'm recording. That completely slipped my mind, this entire thing.
Isn't that nice?
Oh, it is wonderful. Dude, this thing actually loads stuff. I don't have problems turning it on and off. Yeah, it's wonderful.
After looking it up, it's very interesting. They have around $15 million in cap space.
They only have 4 defensemen signed. Sammy Naku is UFA.
Pionk is.
Oh no, RFA.
Yeah, but I still think they could fit that in. I think they could fit Pietrangelo in there.
It's possible. How many forwards do they have signed? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They only have 8 forwards signed, though.
It all depends on what forwards they need to resign. I don't know what Laine's. I know they were trying to trade Laine. I know that's been a rumor that's been going around for a very long time, that Laine could possibly be on the move. I was like, wow, Rangers, but I was like, no, we got our forward set.
Laine for Buchnevich straight up?
Hey, you know what? Deal. Absolutely. I'll tell you what. I'll throw in Georgiev too, just for you. But yeah, Winnipeg.
Dude, imagine that actually happens. You, me, and Brendan would have a field day.
Absolute field field day. Absolute field day. If the Rangers, you put Patrick Laine and Capo Caco together, whoa, that would be something else. But I think the Rangers have, well, I wouldn't say fleeced, but the Rangers have fleeced Winnipeg enough. Obviously depending on how well Jacob Trouba performs next year with his $8 million cap hit.
Well, he needs a defense partner.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, for sure. And I think we're going to see a bounce back year from Chuba for sure. But as far as Pietrangelo, it could be just one of those teams that comes out of the woodwork and just surprises everybody. And it wouldn't color me surprised if it was either Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, like you mentioned. You never know. Maybe, who knows, Stevie Y, in Detroit, you never know.
That would be something, wouldn't it?
Again, probably wouldn't make too much sense. I think that...
No, it wouldn't make sense from either side.
Yeah, right? For sure. But, again, they never know where it's going to go. And really quickly, let me just get your thoughts on another free agent. Mike Hoffman, what are you thinking there? Because, you talk about teams that might need goal scoring or might need to help on the forward lines. I know that the Islanders are really... They have to re-sign their RFAs. They have a lot of people to re-sign, not a lot of cap space to do it. But Lou Lamoriello, he could get some of those big contracts off his hands. You got guys like Johnny Boychuk, Nick Leddy, Andrew Ladd, who are, I think all three of those combined have to be making up at least $15 million of the cap. So,
yikes.
It could possibly happen. The Islanders need a big-time goal scorer badly.
Mike Hoffman. I haven't even thought about that guy.
Well, you know what? You saw how good he was in the first round, or in the play-in round. He was one of the reasons why Florida was even in that series against the New York Islanders, right? You saw the power play, how prolific he was on the power play. And there are a good amount of teams out there who could really use that offensive punch. Maybe a return to Ottawa. You never know now that Carlson's not there and Carlson's girlfriend isn't harassing Mike Hoffman or whatever that situation was that drove him out of there, So those, just off the front of my mind, those are the two biggest free agent, pieces that could be on the move, besides Holtby and Markstrom. But I think Carolina and Colorado take both of those. I don't know in which order, but I can certainly see that. So.
Well, with what you just said about guys being moved, with the flat cap, it's going to be much harder to move somebody. So.
Right, and that does play trouble for the Islanders, for sure. So unless they want to mortgage their future, but with the flat cap, it's going to be really tough. I agree with you.
No, this is going to be one extremely interesting offseason.
And it all starts next month at the draft. How exciting that's going to be.
Oh, so speaking of the draft, I'm going to end it on this. Before the resume to play happened, me and one of my buddies, we agreed via text message that if Ruff was not coach going into next season and Rangers won the draft lottery, we would celebrate by getting Dunkin' cold brews in the morning because of the Pasternak commercials, which are fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. Can't get enough of them. For lunch, we would go to Cherry Valley. And for dinner, we would get gyros.
Well, you gotta do it now.
Oh, absolutely. I tried to bring up like one more thing, get like Baconators or something, and he's just like, yeah, I don't know if my stomach could take that much.
Yeah, those gyros could do quite a hit on you. But the fact that Lindy Ruff is not here, and not only that, the fact that Lindy Ruff is out, but he's with the Devils, I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Oh, man, dude, we were having a field day that day.
We did, and Jax Martin coming in from Pittsburgh, taking over the defensive core, I think that's really going to help out things. This could be a much, much different, much better Rangers team next season, and that's not even accounting for the players that are coming on the ice. The management, too, is so much improved, on all ends. So I think the Rangers are going to be a great team, and it comes down to whether David Quinn is able to right the ship and be that coach that we really hoped he would be, developing the young players. So we will see.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like we said, it's going to be an interesting offseason. depending on when next season starts, going to be a very interesting season.
For sure.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, and also, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with salary cap. Even though we know it's going to be the same for a few years, like the moves teams are going to have to make. Like, it's going to get pretty wild.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if the Rangers made a very big move. I don't know what it is. It could be anything, but I think that they really get their number 2 center this year. And I don't know in this offseason. I don't know whether it's going to be Cirelli on an offer sheet. I don't know if it's going to be trading somebody's rights like D'Angelo or a draft pick or something like that. But they got to make a move in that regard, and I think they're going to. So
yeah, I think Gordon has. The Trouba trade was a splash.
Besides the Tampa trade, he hasn't missed on many trades.
Well, I mean, we are getting a very, very, very good defensive prospect out of that trade.
Right, absolutely.
So,
and, getting the number 28 pick, you wouldn't really expect that, but it's good drafting by the Rangers.
Yeah,
so.
But I think Gordon has one, like comparing it to the Trouba trade. The Trouba trade was huge.
It was. Yep.
I think he's got one more trade of that caliber up his sleeve.
Right. I agree with you. And I can't wait to see what that is. And I hope it's for a number 2 center. Who that guy is, you never really know because there are a lot of options on the board. And there are a lot of options that could go south quickly. And one of those guys is Sean Monahan. Want nothing to do with him out of Calgary. I heard that maybe he was going to get moved, something like that. Nugent Hopkins would be an interesting choice. But, you never know if Edmonton's going to be willing to move on from him. He's really turning into a real good player, but only time will tell, and I hope it's a young guy like Cirelli that can come in and really start out on the third line and transition and become that good player. And if he wins the Stanley Cup, having a guy who has been able to play in the playoffs and in big-time moments and big-time games is important. But I agree with you. Gordon has a big trick up his sleeve on the caliber of the Trouba trade. I couldn't have said it better myself. So.
Well, look what we got out of the Nash trade. We already have Lindgren.
Lindgren alone was worth it. And the fact that Nash, retired right after that season with the Boston Bruins when they failed to win the Stanley Cup, made it all the better for the Rangers. This was a guy who was on his way out anyway. The Rangers were rebuilding, and we got a top 4 defenseman out of it. So. Yeah,
and Lindgren's only going to get better.
He is. He really is. And he really, outside of Fox, I think he was the most impressive defenseman for the Rangers this season.
Oh, I agree. Okay, well, D'Angelo was pretty impressive.
D'Angelo, yes, but
you know what? No, I'll give the nod to Lindgren because he was a rookie.
Yeah, I just look at it expectations-wise. Certainly D'Angelo put up a lot of the points. Him and Panarin were just dynamite together.
Oh, yeah.
But Lindgren is a tough son of a bitch, man. He's a guy who will rough and tough you, get into those dirty areas. And, for a rookie, that's impressive. And he's only going to get tougher and better from here. So.
Oh, no, Lindgren is one of those guys you win a Stanley Cup with.
Absolutely.
He plays that type of game.
Yeah, 100%. I think him and Fox are. I truly do.
Man, can we just fast forward to the draft already?
Yeah, right? How far away are we anyway?
I think it might be October 6th now. I'm not 100% sure.
Let's say roughly, 2-3 weeks away. So, not too far off. Lafreniere will be a Ranger, and who they target with that number 22 overall pick, I'm just hoping it's a young center that we can let develop. We need more offensive punch in the AHL, and with their last 2 first-round picks, Kakko and Kravtsov, not really getting a lot of playing time in the American Hockey League. We need somebody that can develop into a good young player. So we'll see.
All right. Let's end it on this then. If you had to bet money right now, Rangers making or trading that 22nd? 22nd,
yes.
Make or trade? If you had to put money, which one would you say the Rangers do right now?
Make the pick.
I agree with you on that one. Unless something changes, they're making the pick.
Yeah, unless that trade Gordon has up his sleeve requires him to move on from that pick, we got to get younger. We got to have more guys coming up through the pipeline. Look at Colorado, man. Look at the Avalanche. As good and as young as they are, they got better prospects coming up through the system.
Dude, they have Bowen Byram.
They have Bowen Byram, yes. They do. Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, that team lucked the hell out, man. Gee, I mean, Makar and Byram within a 3-year span. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and the cap hit that Nathan McKinnon is on. Oh my goodness.
Oh, jeez. Jealous.
Nathan McKinnon is the second best player on this planet. You may disagree with me, but I believe he's the second best player behind Connor McDavid in the world. He's getting paid $6-7 million. That's crazy. And the Rangers need to replicate that. They need to continue to have young guys coming up through the system. They have it now with the defense.
Yes.
They need it with the offense. Because in the AHL, the offense is anemic. So.
Liam, you know I've been mentioning that for months.
You have. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And, defense is good. The goaltending depth is good. Tyler Wall, Adam Huska, all those guys, you like it. But the offense, Tim Gettinger and Stephen Fogarty, they're not cutting it for me.
Took the words right out of my mouth, not cutting it.
He's not a guy that's going to make an impact on the Rangers roster come 2 years from now. So.
Well, it's been episode number 30 of Backup Blueshirts, Liam.
Absolutely. And I'm stepping in for Brendan. And it's hard shoes to fill. But it's going to be great when you guys have Brendan back. And, it was a pleasure joining you today. As always, always talking Rangers hockey and playoff hockey to begin with. And let's hope that we can see Kevin Shattenkirk lift that Stanley Cup.
Do you want me to hang up on you right now?
No, I don't. Obviously, I'm just joking. Kevin Shattenkirk, he's just playing very poor Ranger. Doesn't deserve a Stanley Cup, but hey, it's all right. Weirder things have happened. It's 2020.
Yes, dude. Seriously, whoever wins the cup, it's like it's 2020. These playoffs haven't gone as we expected. So
that was my reasoning, honestly. Like my unofficial laughing reasoning, behind all of this. If Tampa Bay was ever going to win the Stanley Cup and get to the promised land, it's 2020.
Yeah. Or Dallas, because they're fitting that bill pretty well right about now.
They are. You remember, a couple weeks before, I know you want to end the show, but take you back to a couple weeks before the shutdown, the Rangers manhandled Dallas in Dallas. Remember that game?
That was like 9 months ago at this point, so no.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but we took them down, and that was a fun game before the season ended in Colorado where we lost in overtime. But regardless, I think the Stanley Cup is two teams that really deserve to be there, and they are going to battle, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
Yep. Man. I love it's going to be mid-October. There's going to be no hockey. We're not going to know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank God I have an Xbox and a PlayStation. Thank God.
Let's hope NHL 21 is a little bit different than NHL 20, right?
Well, you'll let me know because I haven't bought the game for 2 years now. So.
Right. I played the beta. It was a little bit odd. The only good thing that I can take away from it is that maybe I'll give Brendan a little bit of a better challenge this time on this game. But I'm not holding my hopes up too much. But I will be sure to let you know. So.
All right. Well, everybody go check out Liam's podcast called The Penalty Box. It's on iTunes. Give him and Will Pesic, right?
Yes, Will Pesic. That's right.
Yeah, and Liam joins him on the show. Very good podcast. I listen to it. You should listen to it too.
Thank you. And for everybody listening to this, continue to listen to the Backup Blueshirts podcast. It might not even be the Backup Blueshirts podcast in a couple weeks. A little bit of.
Yeah, we'll get to that next episode.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to spoil things at all, but good things coming for Mike and Brendan's podcast for sure as they transition into all things hockey. So.
And this episode of Backup Blueshirts has been dedicated to Henrik Lundqvist.
Henrik Lundqvist, the king, baby.
All right, thank you Wow, no, I didn't screw that up. Okay. Wow, 2020, I tell you. Thank you. Yeah, seriously. I mean, I got to get in shape, but that's another story.
You and me both.
All right, thank you, everyone, for listening to Backup Blueshirts. Follow us on Twitter at Backup Blue Pod. We are on YouTube and Podbean, and we got a huge announcement next episode, so stay tuned. And
So
whatever you do, watch the Stanley Cup Final. All right?
absolutely.
Just watch. I mean, you don't have to be rooting for anybody. Just watch.
And if Tampa Bay lifts the Stanley Cup, you can turn the TV off.
Oh, that's what I'm doing.
Because I know that's what Shades is doing, and Brendan most likely too. So, well, I'll just turn it off right when Shattenkirk lifts the cup.
I mean, I'm just gonna turn it off at the end of the game, probably, depending on who wins.
Absolutely. Well, it's good joining you, Mike.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Liam.
That's my pleasure. You have a good night, and I'll be listening for next week for that big announcement. And Brendan, big shoes to fill. I hope I did a good job in your absence, and it's good that you're going to be back next time. So.
Yeah, and if we had audio problems, I'm not editing this episode just because it's just I just don't feel like it.
You don't feel like it, and it's 2020, so you know what? You can do whatever you like.
Yeah, funny how the only episode I wouldn't go back and listen to is the one dedicated to Henrik Lundqvist. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Just like all the Rangers and their fans have turned the blind eye on Henrik Lundqvist. Here you are doing it again. just joking, of course. But yeah, definitely, an episode dedicated to Henrik Lundqvist. Couldn't have ended it in a better way. And if this is the end for Lundqvist, from me, just a thank you for just some tremendous hockey over the years. And he is a sure ballot Hall of Famer. You can quote me on that. So.
Can't say it any better than that. Thank you, everyone, for listening. All right.
Wow, that worked out, huh?